So, Doctor Who is back.
Doctor Who is back. It feels like it's been a year since I last saw Doctor Who. Probably because it has been a year.
It's been almost a year because the last was the Christmas special. So, yeah. It was basically Stephen Moffat drunkenly decided to do another episode because nobody else was going to do it.
But we have a first, proper episode of Doctor Who in a long time. So the elephant in the room is that the Doctor is played by a Northerner.
Yes, for the first time since Christopher Eccleston.
Yeah, and I don't know how I feel about that, honestly. I think it should be someone from London.
It's clearly a controversial choice, but, I think it worked out. I actually genuinely found it funny that not only is Jodie Whittaker using her natural Yorkshire accent, which I'm very glad of because I didn't want another Doctor doing a fake accent because I don't think Tennant's accent is particularly convincing.
Well, I'm an American, so all English accents sound convincing to me, as long as they're played by a British person.
Yeah, but I found it funny that not only is she from Yorkshire, all of the companions are from Yorkshire. So it's a very Yorkshire-centered cast, which is funny after... It's like the opposite of the Russell T Davies everyone is from London era.
I felt actually a bit like I was watching Broadchurch. Yeah, everyone's got this weird, non-standard English accents. But it was interesting. Actually, it did feel a lot like Russell T Davies in that, yeah, everyone's from Yorkshire, not London this time. It was a lot more grounded and earthy in a way.
I think it was a lot more grounded and earthy than Doctor Who has possibly ever felt. But because it wasn't quite it didn't quite have a similar tone to Russell T Davies, I don't think.
It was dark. Well, I feel like it was pretty close in tone to Russell T Davies, actually, which is usually kind of a bad thing when I say something like that, but I didn't mind it. I suppose we could actually talk about if we liked it or not.
Yeah, yeah.
Rather than sarcasm.
I liked it, but I felt like it felt more like Broadchurch than the Russell T Davies era to me, which isn't that surprising given that Chris Chibnall wrote Broadchurch. I'm very glad it felt like...
Well, I've only seen season 1 of Broadchurch.
I'm very glad it felt like Broadchurch and not like one of his Torchwood episodes, because those were bad. I did not like his Torchwood episodes.
I didn't really like his Doctor Who episodes either.
Oh, yeah.
Except, this one is actually by far, I think, my favorite Chris Chibnall Doctor Who episode.
Apparently, I discovered that every episode that he wrote up until this point, almost all of them were last-minute requests to replace another episode that had fallen through, or they were majorly rewritten at the last minute, in the case of Power of Three. I know with Power of Three, for a fact, I know that one's true.
It also feels like it could be him. It was rewritten. I feel like it might be him saying, I promise I'm good, guys. I just had to do these things I couldn't control. I know I would be saying that if I had screwed up so badly on a...
I think that there is a lot of crazy behind-the-scenes stuff going on with Doctor Who that we're not always aware of as an audience.
I think also he made an intentional decision to make these episodes longer because he's better...
I think almost everyone's better at with a 60-minute episode than a 40-minute episode.
Yeah, I mean, I was worried it would be too long, because then it would start to drag. I actually felt like the pacing was perfect.
I think the pacing would have been perfect if BBC America hadn't decided to air half an hour of commercials in with it as well.
I was getting to that, actually. Yeah, my main concern, my main criticism.
And the worst thing, I think, is there was no opening credits everywhere. But they saved the theme for the closing credits as the debut of the new Doctor Who music. And BBC America didn't air the closing credits.
Yep, I noticed that. I was a little bit peeved. I heard the theme. It's in the train scene.
You can find the full thing online as well, and I love it. It's literally the original William Hartnell theme elements combined with like a more modern percussion element to them. And it sounds great. It's like literally just a 21st century version of the original Doctor Who theme, and it's my favorite one that they've done in a long time.
It's really good. I wouldn't have known that it was Hartnell's original.
Yeah.
Film, but like when I heard it on the train, I went, "Oh, that's good." And I don't usually notice music in TV shows. And
I did feel like in general the music was more subdued.
Yeah, I didn't notice the music too much, except for the main theme. It was definitely not as bombastic.
Murray Gold's whole run. I mean, he did the whole new series of Doctor Who until now. And he's very bombastic, and I love his music, but it's kind of interesting to hear a more subtle approach to doing the Doctor Who score.
It was definitely more Chris Chibnall in style, I think, from what I gather watching Broadchurch. And that's mainly my positives, is that I think he really smartly has tailored the show so far to his strengths, and God knows he has many weaknesses.
Yeah, I noticed that the whole thing, like all the way the character dynamic is set up with the multiple characters feels very much like him, because I noticed every show he did up until he now has been like an ensemble type show. Like Broadchurch has all the characters in the village. He did Torchwood, which is Doctor Who but with a team. And he did Law and Order UK for some inexplicable reason, which again is like a team of characters. So I think that's where he works well, is when he has a cast of characters to work with, rather than just one Doctor and companion. But yes, even in his Doctor Who episodes in Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, he had a bigger cast of he added extra companions just for that story. So I'm really not surprised he had a larger cast in this one.
His Doctor Who it's only one episode in, but it's surprisingly competent.
Well, the weird thing is I was like, oh, maybe it'll be like a more competent version of Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, but like with that similar tone, and it's really not. I was surprised by how dark it was, actually. Like, it wasn't incredibly dark, but it was much darker than I was expecting it to be. More of like a rompy Doctor Who episode, and it was quite serious. It
was the tone I wanted it, and I was hoping that he would take it into, but it wasn't exactly the tone I was expecting. I was definitely expecting a little bit more lightheartedness, and I was pleasantly surprised that it was darker. It was more rounded. It wasn't as wacky and silly as the late Moffat era was. And I love Moffat, but the late Moffat era really kind of went off the rails with the wackiness. Like, the wacky meter was at 11, and now it's down to 3. I don't feel like the late Moffat era was particularly wacky. I feel like it was more the middle of Moffat's era, like the late Matt Smith stuff, to me, that felt like that. Like, the Dinosaurs on a Spaceship type era was the era where I was going, this is a bit too much, and you probably want to tone it down. And then I felt like the Capaldi era was overall a pretty good balance between the comedic elements and the serious elements. That's fair. It's probably more like, I'm thinking more Series 7. Which is middle Moffat era. Middle Moffat era. The middle ages of the Moffat era. And one thing that I really liked about the first episode was that the tone felt consistent, too. Yes. It never really seemed inconsistent with the tone, with the style it was going for. And that surprised me. That's like a consistent flaw, I think, in lots of Doctor Who episodes. Yeah, lots of Doctor Who episodes will suddenly go from very, very, very serious to very comedic on the drop of a hat. And sometimes I think it can work. Like, I think my favorite moment in one of my favorite moments in Day of the Doctor, I can't narrow it down to just one, but one of my favorite moments is when the 11th Doctor and the 10th Doctor are making their jokes. And I think one of them says something about timey-wimey,
and the War Doctor responds with like makes fun of it and then says, when did you like, it's something about like, when did you decide to start sounding like children or something like that, and then it transitions straight into like the like very dramatic tonal shift to talking about Gallifrey and its destruction, because that was the moment when they decided. And I think that was one of the moments where a tonal shift works really well. And I explained it really badly because I forgot all of the lines as I was saying it.
I haven't seen Day of the Doctor in maybe 3 years, so I was not jumping in to help you because I don't remember very much. My favorite tonal shift is Let's Kill Hitler, because when I got to that episode, I saw that the title was called Let's Kill Hitler, and I watched the first 5 minutes, and they would go back in time because what's her name wants to kill Hitler, and then it's like a really dark, intense episode, and I thought that was brilliant. But overall, I think when there's a sudden tone shift in Doctor Who, it's not intentional and it's not executed.
Yes. I think what can work really well is like a serious beat coming at the end of a comedic scene.
Yeah,
but that's much better than the other way around. A comedic beat breaking up a serious scene tends not to work.
And that's my problem with the Marvel movies.
Yeah, I'll admit that tends to be a Marvel problem. I don't think it happens that much in Infinity War, which was pretty grim throughout.
I haven't seen it,
even though it had jokes in it, but I don't know. But yeah, that seems to be like the one exception.
But this episode, it was focused, it was serious without being too dark. Like the tone was really just pretty spot on.
It had a good tone.
So what did you think about Jodie Whittaker herself?
I loved her. I thought she was amazing. Like, from the first moment when she suddenly drops out of the sky and through a train roof. I do have a minor issue with I'm just like, the Doctor's not supposed to be able to drop out of the atmosphere and survive smashing through a train roof. But I'll give it a pass, because from that moment she was just straight in character as the Doctor, and I immediately just accepted her in the role.
I don't know if you could hear me sigh just now, but
I heard it.
You heard it. As you were explaining it, I realized it was exactly what I was gonna say had you asked me what I thought of Jodie, and pretty much beat for beat. I loved her as soon as she dropped out of the sky. I thought it was a little weird. She was unharmed, but I guess maybe regeneration energy.
I took it as like regeneration energy.
Yeah. From her first line, which I think was written like a Capaldi line. I don't quite remember it. I remember thinking it felt like Capaldi, which I love because it's keeping the plot going. And that didn't happen to me with Capaldi. It took me at least 5 episodes to feel like I had warmed up to him.
To be fair, I think the thing for me is with both Jodie Whittaker and Matt Smith, it was like a pretty instant thing that they felt like the Doctor. With Capaldi, it was like bits and pieces, and it took a while. But by the end, he was is one of my favorite Doctors, and I think that was intentional, because they were deliberately trying to make the audience question Capaldi and wonder: is this guy really the Doctor? Is he like? Can you really trust him? Whereas Jodie Whittaker and Matt Smith are just trying to get everyone on board with them as quickly as possible. They don't want the audience questioning the Doctor, really. But I think that was absolutely the right way to take it for the first female Doctor. I don't think you could have had a Capaldi is this Doctor a good person type deal with Jodie Whittaker and have the show survive it.
See, my opinion of Series 8 is low enough to where I don't think that was terribly intentional, but I agree that it was a very good thing that they didn't try to do any sort of, like, wondering about if Jodie is really the Doctor or not, because that, I think, with all the weird controversy surrounding it. Was it even really a controversy, or was it like 5 idiots on Twitter?
It was 5 idiots on. It was basically a combination of very, very traditionalist Doctor Who fans and alt-right lunatics who are trying to pretend to be very, very traditionalist Doctor Who fans, and a lot of some overlap between those two groups. But it wasn't that many people, but it was a few. It was a very vocal minority.
Yeah, I felt mostly like a non-controversy, but I did run into a couple of people in real life who were like, "Wow, Doctor's a woman. That's so awful," or whatever. I don't even remember what they said. But I do think it was the right move to, for lack of a better word, make her a normal Doctor. Like right away, she feels like Matt Smith,
Yeah, I was saying online, back before the episode aired, I was saying to people that I really think that the best move is to make her be a very normal Doctor, rather than try and go for something really bold like a Capaldi type thing where they did. Capaldi was clearly like a deliberate. Moffat had been writing Doctor Who for 3 years now. Like, he'd done Matt Smith as a pretty typical doctorish Doctor, and he wanted to kind of push the envelope and see what interesting things he could do with a Doctor who was different and a little edgier. And whereas I think if you'd done something like that with Jodie Whittaker, everyone would have concluded, oh, so a woman can't be the Doctor or whatever, and the risk of it backfiring would have been too great with the first female Doctor, I think.
I agree completely, and I'm worried that that's going to make for a boring conversation, so instead I'm going to say I disagree completely.
Yes. Jodie Whittaker should have killed someone in cold blood in her first appearance. She kind of did. She killed
someone by negligence. We'll get to that. I'm not done praising Jodie Whittaker yet. She had an AMA on Reddit today, and
I saw that she'd had it, but I didn't read it.
Someone asked her, what do you want to bring to the Doctor? And she had a very Matt Smith-style answer, which was along the lines of, I really like the childlike wonder and joy that the Doctor exudes. And it's very Matt Smithy, but it's also kind of what I was missing from Capaldi. I really did warm up to Capaldi by the end of his run, but I did miss the kind of childlike sense that he had, and she really brought that back.
I think Capaldi had that childlike sense. It was just buried under a bit of a layer of spikiness.
Yeah.
But I think that
it wasn't front and center.
Yeah, it wasn't as front and center. It wasn't as obvious as with Matt Smith. But I think that it's one of those cases of I like Doctors to be different, because I really don't want to I don't want 3 years of Matt Smith followed by 3 years of someone else playing the role exactly like Matt Smith, followed by 3 years of someone else playing the role exactly like Matt Smith, because that's just boring. That's neglecting how Doctor Who works.
I don't know. I love Matt Smith enough to be like, yeah, I think that sounds fine. I keep comparing her to Matt Smith, but she did seem still distinct.
She did seem distinct.
The whole I can build things. I'm good at that.
I love that. That's a big thing that I was just like, one of the things that I don't like about the new series of Doctor Who is that the Doctor never builds anything or scraps things together. It's usually like the sonic screwdriver, or they come in with a gadget they've built off screen. And I love just seeing her lash things up and experiment with things, making her own sonic screwdriver. That's amazing. I love that. That's brilliant.
I hope now that she has built her sonic screwdriver that they're not going to fall back into the old trap of something's wrong, sonic it.
Yeah, hopefully.
It seemed very much like a message from Jim Hall to the other writers, hey, this Doctor's a steampunk Doctor. She can build things.
Yeah.
She has cool goggles. And if that's the case, I love it. I thought that was a great little character choice.
My view is I'd rather see the Doctor using the sonic screwdriver to help her build things than just using the sonic screwdriver as a device in and of itself to accomplish everything.
Yeah, and I feel like that this episode brought that back a little bit. There was definitely a bit of sonic overload in the past.
Yes, yeah, I'd say there definitely has been a little too much Sonic overuse in. I feel like it went down again with the Capaldi era a bit, because I think the absolute worst Sonic usages for me are.
Wait, let me guess. It's the moment I think, in the Day of the Doctor, where they Sonic Blast Daleks.
Oh, I'd forgotten that, but that basically qualifies. But the two things for me were the bit I was going to say, in Rings of Akaten, there's a scene where he's, like, using the sonic screwdriver, like, to blast at mummies or something. And there's also a scene in, then also the scene at the end of Power of Three, which was by Chibnall. Except I don't blame him for that one, because apparently it was rewritten at the last minute, because the actor playing the villain literally refused to do some of his lines. Which doesn't seem like something that should happen, but apparently everything I've heard about Doctor Who Series 7 sounds like it was a complete mess behind the scenes. Neil Gaiman has...
sounds like something that Marlon Brando would do.
Yeah, but like Neil Gaiman has just come out online talking about how much he didn't like Nightmare in Silver and how he felt it didn't work and how it was a mess behind the scenes. So I think it was just a case of literally everything in Series 7 was a disaster. Stephen Moffat said the only reason he didn't leave with Series 7 was because it was so terrible. He didn't want his last memories of being on the show to be that negative, so he wanted to stick around and do something that he actually, and do a season of Doctor Who that wasn't absolute hell for him to work on.
That's actually what, I think I said something like that after season 7. I didn't want Moffat to leave because, like, he can't go out like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he didn't, and he came back and he made one of my favorite episodes ever, and I forgive him. Back to Jodie, though.
She's great.
She's great. I feel like I had mental notes on all these specific things, and as soon as we started recording, all I could think of was, she was great.
Yeah. I felt, the only sort of negative comments I saw about it, the only negative review I saw for the episode in general was from the New York Times, which...
Oh boy, the New York Times. Failing New York Times.
Yes, but the thing is, I read the review because it was spoiler-free before the episode came out, and I was terrified, because their review was essentially exactly what I feared the episode was going to be like, which was, they said it was bland, and felt like any other show on TV, and that Jodie Whittaker felt very human as the Doctor, and not eccentric or alien. And I don't think that was the case at all.
Yeah, that seems like someone forgot to watch the episode and took a wild guess on what they thought the episode was. That
sounds like someone read my why Chris Chibnall is not qualified to flush a toilet article and decided that it must all be factually true and just extrapolated an episode from that.
Yeah, not calling her non-eccentric just seems like they didn't watch the show.
Like, I felt like...
It's very weird.
She felt very alien to me. Not perhaps as alien as Capaldi felt or Matt Smith felt sometimes, but definitely more alien than David Tennant, who's the one Doctor who doesn't feel alien to me.
Yeah, he seems very human to me. My one, I almost want to say critique with Jodie, was that I thought she was so good, everyone else looked bad. Like the other actors were fine, but I feel like she was just so much better than the rest of them. It made me like the companions less than I would have normally, if that makes any sense.
I can see what you're saying there, but yeah, I think the episode did a good job of building them, but they weren't quite as distinctive as she was. But I think that given there's a whole series to build them, I'm not going to complain and be like the companions are really bland yet.
Right. No, I'm not either. Yeah. I'm just talking about the first episode so far.
I think in general, there's kind of like, I feel like there's going to have to be an adjustment as well to, I said in my short brief review on the blog, I said my thing is that I liked the episode, but I didn't like it as much as 11th Hour or Deep Breath. And I think I just won't like this era as much as I like the Moffat era in general. But because it's just less to my taste. And I think in general, I just kind of have to There are things like the way Chibnall writes characters is very different from the way Moffat writes characters, in that Moffat tended to have characters who were really, like, distinctive. They had very distinct ways of talking, and, like, very, like, all of his characters tended to feel as big as the Doctor. Like, Amy, Rory, River, Clara, Bill, like them or hate them, they're all very distinct, like, characters who have just as much personality as the Doctor, except maybe Series 7 Clara, they had no idea what they were doing with her yet. But I think whereas Chibnall tends to write more kind of, more grounded characters, like they just feel they're subtler, and that's less to my liking, but I don't know, and I think it's going to require some adjustment that makes the companions feel a little bland right now, but I think it's a perfectly valid way of writing the characters still.
I liked this episode a lot more than Deep Breath. I see what you mean about the way Moffat writes characters versus the way Chibnall writes characters, and generally I would prefer the Chibnall grounded way, but Doctor Who is such a, idiosyncratic show. I would be inclined to agree with you. I like Moffat's, big, bold characters, but I do not like Deep Breath. I tried to warm up to Deep Breath in Series 8 for so long, and watching this episode, I felt like Chibnall effectively used how long was the actual episode? Was it 70 minutes?
It was like, I think it was 65, but I could be 65. Wrong.
Just quick side note, it was a 2-hour broadcast, and I'm pretty sure at least 40 minutes were ads.
Yeah. It was, I think... when I watched it, they had a 15-minute after party thing slapped onto it as well, because BBC America needed to try and make everything into, like, they had a before watch party and then they had an after party. Like, they tried to make a whole day's event out of it, but then they also slapped like half an hour of commercials in there, and it was a mess.
Well, however long it was, I think Chibnall used the extra time a lot better than Moffat did for Deep Breath, because it seemed like Deep Breath was, Moffat wrote a 40-minute episode, BBC said, hey, you got a 60-minute episode, and he went, crap, okay, dinosaur.
I think one of the things about how Moffat works as a writer is that he started in sitcoms, and it was his sitcom, Coupling is amazing. It's like one of the best sitcoms of all time. It's like uses the way sitcoms work brilliantly. And I think once you consider how Moffat's starting in sitcoms, I think a lot of his writing style makes more sense, in that he tends to build things around big moments or jokes, or and like he'll just throw in he'll just be like, what if the episode starts with a T-Rex walking around in Victorian London, and then it coughs up the TARDIS, which is a great image, but then he's like, all right, now I need to justify why this is in the script, and he'll write like a couple of lines to explain it. But he's not a writer who works by the sense of logic. Or like a story as a cohesive whole. He looks at it from the point of view of how can I put in these great moments, and then he does clever things with structure as well. But I think Chibnall was more of a case of he was just like, I need something that will serve the overall plot of the episode. There weren't any moments in the episode that felt like they were thrown in there just because they were great moments that he needed to have, which is something I think sometimes it was good with Moffat's writing. Like, there were lots of great moments, and it's just like, were they entirely justified? No, but they were amazing, so it doesn't matter. But there were times where he'd just be like, okay, I need to have this scene, and it doesn't make sense that scene or that image or that joke is in the episode. It just felt like it was shoved in because he wanted to have it.
Yeah, it's I know what you're talking about, Moffat doing these like big moments thing, and I usually did not like them unless I'm forgetting a lot. Uh, I was really starting to get tired of them in season 7 or so, and I was really
Mm.
glad. I feel like he did get away from it in 9
Yeah.
and 10. And I was really glad that there was no trace of that in this one. I felt like it was very refreshing.
I really liked the small stakes of the episode. It's
Yeah.
about an alien hunter hunting down one guy, and like the grand total of people who would have died in the episode if everything had gone the alien hunter's way, Tim Shaw's way. It would have, like, a grand total of maybe 10 people would have died.
Including throwing salad at Alien Guy, which is the best character in Doctor Who history.
He is the best character in Doctor Who history.
Yeah, I love the small stakes. Like, I keep comparing it to Russell Davies, even though I don't really like Russell Davies. And the difference is, if Russell T Davies had written this episode, it would have been an alien invasion for all of Earth, you know.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and that would have just felt so... Is trite the right word here? Just so...
Yes, yeah.
Contrived.
Yeah, like I feel like if this was a Russell T Davies episode, Tim Shaw would have arrived on Earth with the intention of bringing all of his people there so that they could hunt down the entire human race or something like that. Yeah. Instead of just he's after one guy and anybody who gets in the way.
Yeah, I really like the smaller scale. Moffat would occasionally do a small scale, and I felt like he was actually better at that, but he really liked to go big scale as well. But it was a very big, bad problem with Russell T Davies' era.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Part of me feels like Moffat's finales in a lot of cases feel like he was just going with the with like what he thought people expected out of a Doctor Who finale in terms of the stakes. Like it wasn't that he wanted to write, he felt more comfortable writing more personal stories, and it felt sometimes like he was just like, okay, everyone expects the finale to be the Earth is in danger, so the finale needs to be the Earth is in danger.
The season 10 finale was so quiet.
It was amazing.
And yet so powerful. It was just jaw-droppingly good, and it was so, I mean, I don't remember exactly how big the stakes were, but the stakes were not all of Earth is being invaded by aliens, you know. It felt small in scale. And I think that's where Doctor Who's really good. I
think generally speaking, and there are definitely exceptions to this, but overall I feel like my least favorite kind of Doctor Who stories are the alien invasion of the entirety of present-day Earth stories.
My least favorite ones are the two-parters, where the first half is a very small mystery, and then at the end it's revealed it's an alien invasion, and then the second half is the alien invasion.
Yeah, that can qualify too. But
basically just the longer version of yours.
Yeah. But I'm just like, I feel like it's basically comes down to, it's the same thing. Hollywood really annoyed me for years, and a big part of why I liked Star Trek Beyond was just the fact that it wasn't a movie about the Earth being in danger. And every single Star Trek movie since I think but all of the new ones and a good chunk of the older ones were like, all of a sudden the villain feels a need to go to Earth to try and blow it up. And it just felt really awkward. And I feel like Doctor Who falls into the same trap, where Doctor Who is not a show that works best when it's about a giant alien invasion of Earth and the Doctor has to stop them.
It's probably a bad sign that we're about 38 minutes into this, and the first time I've actually disagreed with you was not over Doctor Who, it's over Star Trek Beyond being a good movie.
Yeah. Well, like it's
terrible. Well, it's not terrible, it's a very bad movie.
I think a lot of my appreciation for Star Trek Beyond is just down to my dislike of of Star Trek Into Darkness, and just liking very particular things that it did and giving it a pass for everything else because like Kirk was in character it wasn't on Earth, and it didn't have a character, and it didn't have a white British man suddenly revealing himself to be Khan halfway through the movie.
Well, that's actually kind of what I was thinking was going to happen with this season. Like, I would see things it did that wouldn't have happened under Moffat or Davies, and I'd be like, well, at least it's not doing those things I don't like.
Yeah.
But I think this actually stands on its own as a good show.
Yeah, I think it does.
Episode in, which Beyond does not do.
Agree to disagree.
Well, we need to throw in a disagreement every now and then, even if it's not Doctor Who.
Just to let everyone know we're not actually a hive mind.
I'm trying to figure out if there's something we might actually be disagreeing on. And the only thing I can think of is Grace's death.
Grace's death, I was slightly mixed on it.
Damn it!
Okay, I'm generally in favor of it. But I did feel like it was a little, it felt like it happened very quickly. It didn't feel like it fit with the flow of the final scene. And then it also felt like it felt like the resolution to it was over very quickly. But to be fair, it might be setting stuff up for the future episodes to come that we haven't seen yet.
That's exactly what I feel.
Damn it.
Oh, I was really hoping you would say you would either hate it or loved it. Oh, God. Why are we so similar on this one?
I don't know. It's funny because theoretically our tastes are like completely different when it comes to almost everything else.
Well, when we first started talking about doing conversations for the blog, it was after Series 8, which we disagreed like on the episode.
I love Series 8. I think it's one of the best series of Doctor Who, and you hate it. I think Robots of Sherwood is a work of art, and nobody else in the world agrees with me on that.
Well, I don't hate Robot of Sherwood, but I hated a lot of Series 8, and I do not understand why some people liked a lot of it. But then Series 9 hit, and we loved that. Series 10 hit, and we mostly liked that. And so far, even though it's a completely different cast and showrunner, the hive mind is real.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. When it came, my thought on Grace's death was it was a little bit quick, a little bit rushed. I felt like, it's probably setting something up. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a Nana's Day episode that's Grace-centric. So I could excuse it, but it really wasn't. It was like the least strong part of the episode, I think. I really like that it sets up the bait and switch of the first scene. That almost made me like it a lot.
That was a nice touch.
Yeah, that was a clever little bait and switch.
I think I would have liked it better if what she did had that her taking down the thing didn't seem like it had an impact because of the way, but I think that may have been down to the specific way it was filmed, and it was supposed to be that taking down the flying spaghetti monster was more significant to the plot than it seemed, but it seemed to me like the thing wasn't doing much after taking the electrical power. It took the electrical power out of the crane already, and then it just seemed to just sit there, and then she hit it with a thing, and it died, and she died, but it didn't seem to have any effect on any of the other characters. It felt like if she hadn't done it, then the electric flying spaghetti monster would have continued to just sit there on a crane. Like, I feel like it needed to have more of a... Like, if we'd been shown Ryan and Yaz up in the crane, and, like, the crane is leaning from one side to the other, and, like, it seems like they're about to die or whatever, and then she stabs it and saves their lives and dies in the process, I think that would have felt like a really well-earned moment.
Yeah, I thought that the flying spaghetti monster had already been dealt with by the time I saw her climbing up the thing. So that was a little bit confusing.
It was very weird because there was that other scene where felt like it was out of the picture, and then all of a sudden it was back.
Yeah, I was wondering if she was supposed to not realize that it was fine, but they didn't say that. I was kind of prepared for the Doctor to be like, I told you to stay back. I had it. It was fine. But she didn't say that.
Oh, that reminds me. There is one other bit that's within 30 seconds of that was another bit that I didn't like.
Oh, okay.
Which is the Doctor's line, "You had no right to do that."
I saw a little bit of pushback on that on Reddit, which is the closest thing I can say to agreeing with you. So actually, we have a bit of a disagreement.
Okay. So my issue with it...
I don't agree with the Doctor, but I thought it was an interesting character moment.
My issue with it is that the Doctor has literally just she put the DNA bombs inside the guy and basically and let him trigger them, which I liked. It's a very Sylvester McCoy-esque, like,
I thought so
like
too.
Trapping the enemy and basically a case of like he deserves it because he brought it on himself by pressing the button. But then it was very odd to essentially kill the person and then be mad at his victim for kicking him off a crane.
Yeah,
like,
I can see that. She did kind of destroy his DNA from the inside out.
It also felt really odd because there was no context to it. It was just that one line. Like that was the first we hear of it, and that's the last we hear of it. That all of a sudden she's suddenly like morally outraged by the victim of an alien hunter who's stealing people's teeth and was going to kill him, like kicking said alien hunter with teeth in his face off of a crane.
It did feel a bit like a Matt Smith line in a not good way, if that makes any sense. It did feel like something that Eleven may have said.
It felt to me more like a David Tennant line, in the sense of the David Tennant lines I don't like, where he'll suddenly be... like, my least favorite line from David Tennant is the "I never would build your society on that, a man who never would," when he literally tells a bunch of colonists to build their society on him because he didn't shoot a man in the face after strongly considering doing it. Like,
is that the Doctor's daughter?
That's the Doctor's daughter, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that line was a little bit weird.
Like,
it did stick out for sure, that line from 13. Is it 13 now?
It's 13, yeah.
Count.
Unless,
it is 13.
Yeah, unless you get into the whole, like, War Doctor thing.
No,
and people who do that are stupid, because honestly, the numbering is pretty much an outside-the-show thing.
Right.
Like,
it's just a little bit more creative to say 13 than the Doctor every single time.
I prefer to call the character the Doctor when possible, except if I have to, like, differentiate between one and another.
Yeah.
But in general, I kind of get annoyed by, like, I actually feel like it's really awkward when people inside the show refer to the Doctor by their number. Like, it doesn't...
I like the all 13 line from...
All 13 is a great line, you're right. No, but, like, that's not a huge one, but it's like when people are just, like... It doesn't happen very often, but it's like when people try and refer to, like, the Doctor as the 11th Doctor rather than the Doctor. It just feels like a thing that makes sense out of universe, but feels really awkward for people in universe. In that it's always the Doctor, and like also like during the Tom Baker era, there's an episode that implied that where they tried to suggest that the Doctor had like 8 other faces before William Hartnell, and I'm so sad that didn't stick because that's amazing. But they still referred to him as the 4th Doctor in like all of the promotional media, because it's not a matter of how many incarnations of the Doctor have there been. It's a question of how many actors have played the Doctor.
The 4th actor to play the Doctor.
Yeah, the 4th actor to have played the Doctor.
Well, we are about 50 minutes in.
Yeah.
Should we do some final thoughts and a little bit of wrap up? I have no idea if this is going to be 50 minutes after post.
Yeah, I think there's a lot. I think there was a lot early on to clip, but yeah, but I'm surprised by how long we talked about it. But I think we drifted largely off topic for large sections of this.
I think we were as advertised with how on topic we were. So
Yeah.
let's see if we can pull it together for a very quick wrap up and get it under 50 minutes.
Yeah, sounds like a good idea.
All right, you or me first?
You first, because I've got no idea what I'm gonna say.
Okay. Well, I think it was like somewhere between solid and very good, if that makes any sense. It was maybe a little bit safe, but that's not really a bad thing for reintroducing the show to a really big audience. I thought Jodie was a fantastic pick, and she immediately sold me in a way that Capaldi and Tennant and Eccleston did not do. Only Matt Smith did it. The companions were not immediately as compelling as she was, but there's plenty of time left to fix them. I really like the pacing. I think the call for longer episodes is going to turn out really well. And I love that I did not do any sort of promotional or spoilering of myself during the off season. I didn't actually talk about that during the actual conversation, but I avoided every single promotional topic about this upcoming season, and I think it's going to pay off.
Honestly,
so overall,
you didn't really need to, because Chibnall has gone insane with the spoiler prevention, but I like it better than the alternative of like the BBC spoiling that John Sims was back in the next time trailer at the end of the first episode of the season.
That was really stupid.
That was
so maybe I didn't need to, but I had no confidence that they would suddenly
we don't even know what the episodes after next week's are called yet.
That's great. I love it. I keep it that way. Yeah. That is my way of doing promotion. So I really surprisingly like this new direction. I'm really honestly optimistic to see how like a more better. That's not good English. Like how a more technically gifted writer is going to handle these characters, and he's off to a very good start. There's really not a whole lot of red flags so far. If I had to give it a number score, I would give it an 8 out of 10. I'm just kind of spitballing. I didn't actually think of a number score. 8 out of 10 sounds pretty good to me.
Okay. I was also going to give it an 8 out of 10 and say exactly what you said. So, yes. Dang it. Hive mind strikes again. I was very surprised because when Chibnall was announced, I was very scared. And then I was like, after more stuff started coming out, I was like, I've gone back and forth between being scared and being excited, and I was pretty positive by the end, and I went in with a very positive attitude, and it was very, very good. I liked it, yeah. And I'm interested to see where it goes. It's not, like I said, it's not as much to my taste as Moffat's era, I don't think. But,
mine, not for me either.
But yes, but I still think it's going to be a very good show, and I'm very hopeful that we're going to get some great episodes out of this. My big concern would be if we didn't. What I really liked is that both the greatest thing and the worst thing about both the Russell T Davies and Stephen Moffat era of the show is because so much individual freedom was given to the writers a lot of the time. You had all of these wildly different episodes, and sometimes that gives you Fear Her or Love and Monsters or In the Forest of the Night, but sometimes it gives you Blink or
another really good Moffat episode.
Just about all of Moffat's episodes before he was scriptwriter. Like, there are so many good standalone. Father's Day, like Dalek, yeah, and Eaters of Light from the last season. I thought was really good.
Yeah, that was good.
And I was like, that's an episode you wouldn't get in a show, in like an American TV show where everything's sort of like sticking super close to the same tone. Every writer's writing from the same guidelines. It's been rewritten by a writer's room over and over. And that's at this point my biggest concern, that we won't get any episodes that are amazing, that it won't take risks in that way. But I did really like this episode. and I am very excited to see where it goes. And I just really want at least one episode that's a major risk-taking episode this season. I have my fingers crossed that I have reason to believe that he may be bringing back pure historicals based off some comment that he made, and that would be the greatest thing ever. So I'm really hoping for that one.
I would die of excitement.
Yeah. So we're pretty optimistic about the future. Any other comments to make?
You've just unreasonably raised my hopes for an episode where they visit Clara and Jane Austen in Regency England.
Apparently Big Finish did just put out an audiobook of that one, but on the other hand, it doesn't actually have Jenna Coleman or Matt
Jane
Smith.
Austen.
And also, it apparently referred to them as good friends, so I was just like, nah, I'm not going to spend my money on that one.
Well, I'm going to book it for the season finale. You heard it here first. Come back in 10 weeks and be amazed.